Crossing boundaries was never accidental for HOA President Karen. It was her hobby, her sport, her identity. She wore her authority the way some people wore perfume: strong, suffocating, impossible to ignore. Late 30s, curly hair always styled to look effortless, bright pink blazer pressed to perfection, clipboard tucked under her arm like a badge of honor. She didn't just enforce rules, she performed them, and she expected applause. I never gave it to her. From the first week we moved into the neighborhood, Karen clocked me as a problem. I asked questions. I read bylaws. I refused fines without evidence. I didn't laugh at her jokes during HOA meetings or nod along when she spoke like a mayor addressing peasants. That resistance planted a seed of obsession in her, and Karen never forgot a face that didn't fear her. If you're already hooked into this story, hit like and subscribe, because what happened next proves how quickly power turns dangerous when mixed with entitlement. And let us know in the comments what time you're watching this, because this story deserves witnesses across time zones. Things stayed tense but manageable until the kids got involved. My son, Evan, and Karen's daughter, Madison, attended the same high school, same grade, same academic track. Both were shortlisted for a prestigious regional science fellowship, one of those programs that opens doors colleges actually care about. Only one slot was available. Evan worked quietly. Late nights at the dining table, notes scribbled, experiments failed and redone. He never talked about it outside our house. Madison's preparation, however, became neighborhood news. Karen turned it into a campaign. She spoke about it at HOA meetings, during dog walks, even cornered neighbors in driveways to announce Madison's inevitable win. She spoke as if the fellowship was already hers, like the judges were merely formalities. Madison, to her credit, wasn't like her mother. She was polite, studious, even awkwardly humble. I could tell she was uncomfortable with the noise. Evan and Madison studied together sometimes at the library. There was no rivalry between them, only between the parents. I noticed Karen watching us more closely as the interview phase approached. Her smiles tightened. Her compliments came layered with warnings. "May the best child win," she'd say, eyes locked on me, as if daring reality to disagree with her expectations. The results were released on a Thursday evening. Evan opened the email at the kitchen counter, hands shaking. Then he froze. Then he smiled. Not loud, not dramatic, just stunned. He got it. The fellowship, all of it, tuition support, research mentorship, everything he'd worked for. I hugged him, told him I was proud, reminded him to stay kind. Across the street, Karen's house went dark that night. No porch lights, no celebration, no announcement. Madison hadn't been selected. From that moment on, Karen changed gears. Violation notices appeared on our door within days, trash can alignment, noise complaints logged when we weren't home, a warning about unauthorized exterior decorations, a potted plant. It was harassment disguised as governance, and everyone knew it. No one said it. Midway through the week, Evan came home quieter than usual. He told me Madison had texted him, apologizing for her mother's behavior, saying she hoped things wouldn't get weird between them. I told him to be cautious, not because he'd done anything wrong, but because Karen didn't see children as children. She saw extensions, assets, threats. Before we go further, drop a comment and tell us which country or city you're watching from. This neighborhood story has a way of reaching far beyond its fences. The next afternoon, Evan walked over to Madison's house to return a notebook she'd lent him. Daylight, school bags still on their shoulders, no secrecy, no drama. Karen's front door flew open. She stood there in her pink blazer, curls bouncing with fury, eyes already lit before anyone spoke. She accused Evan of humiliating her daughter, of stealing what was meant for Madison, of poisoning the process. Evan tried to speak, tried to explain that he hadn't controlled the decision, that he was sorry she was upset. Karen didn't listen. Her voice rose, neighbors' curtains shifted, Madison cried, begging her mother to stop. Karen stepped forward, finger in Evan's face, shouting that kids like you need to learn consequences. Then she shoved him, hard. Evan stumbled backward, hit the porch railing and fell. His backpack spilled across the steps. Karen stood over him, chest heaving, as if daring the world to correct her. Someone screamed. Someone ran. And in that moment, before sirens, before statements, before consequences, the line was crossed, cleanly, clearly, and forever. And Karen still thought she was untouchable.
The call came while I was stuck at a red light, Evan's name flashing across my phone again and again. By the third ring, my chest already knew something was wrong. When I heard his voice, thin, shaking, trying to sound calm, I turned the car around without thinking. I don't remember the drive back. I only remember my hands gripping the wheel so hard they ached. When I reached the house, Evan was sitting on our couch, ice pressed to his wrist, knuckles scraped, eyes red but dry. Shock had replaced tears. He kept apologizing, like this was somehow his fault. I stopped him immediately. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't neighborhood drama. This was assault. I took photos, clear ones, wrist, elbow, the scrape on his shoulder, time-stamped. Then I called the non-emergency police line, exactly like my lawyer friend instructed. Calm voice, factual language, no emotion wasted. The officers arrived within minutes, 2 cars. Neighbors gathered like moths, whispering, pointing toward Karen's house. Statements were taken. Evan spoke quietly but clearly. Madison's sobs carried from across the street as she tried explaining through tears that her mother just snapped. When the officers knocked on Karen's door, she answered, already prepared. Pink blazer, perfect curls, controlled smile. She spoke of discipline, of provocation, of children disrespecting adults. She said Evan had trespassed, that he'd taunted Madison, that she feared for her daughter's safety. She spoke like she always did, confident that authority would fill in the gaps where truth should have been. It didn't. A neighbor stepped forward, then another. Someone had been recording from their porch after hearing shouting. The video showed everything. Evan standing still, Karen advancing, the shove, the fall. No editing, no ambiguity. Karen's expression changed when the officer watched it back. For the first time, her voice wavered. She demanded to speak as HOA president. The officer replied calmly, "Ma'am, that doesn't apply here." That sentence cracked something fundamental. Karen wasn't arrested that night, but a report was filed, charges recommended, and a protective notice issued. She was told clearly that she was not to approach Evan again. As the patrol cars pulled away, the street stayed quiet. Not supportive quiet, watchful quiet, the kind that follows a curtain being pulled back. By morning, the HOA board was in chaos. Emails flew labeled urgent. Emergency meetings were scheduled, then rescheduled when half the board refused to attend under Karen's leadership. Residents demanded explanations. Financial records were requested. Complaints, long buried out of fear, suddenly found courage. Karen sent out a mass email claiming she was being targeted, that Evan's family was weaponizing the system. She signed it, HOA president, bolded. The reply all storm was brutal. Parents, retirees, renters, people who'd paid fines without question for years. They didn't defend her. They questioned her, asked about selective enforcement, about missing funds, about why cameras were installed facing only certain homes. The board voted, unanimously, to suspend her pending investigation. Karen lost access to HOA accounts that same day. The fellowship committee reached out to us next. They'd heard, not from gossip, but from a board member whose niece attended the same school.
They asked Evan if he was okay, issued a written statement affirming the integrity of their selection process and condemning any harassment tied to their program. That statement spread fast. Karen tried to pivot. She cried publicly, claimed stress, claimed misunderstanding, claimed she was protecting her child. None of it erased the video. None of it erased the witnesses. None of it erased the fact that her authority had been used as a shield for violence. Court dates followed. Karen sat smaller in the courtroom. No pink blazer, hair pulled back tight. She didn't look powerful there, just cornered. The judge didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He referenced evidence, statements, prior complaints, a pattern. Restitution was ordered, mandatory anger management, community service. A civil settlement followed soon after. Quietly, quickly. Her attorney knew better than to drag it out. The HOA presidency was terminated permanently. An audit uncovered years of selective fines and misuse of funds. Vendors stopped returning her calls. The neighborhood stopped looking away. Madison transferred schools. Weeks later, Evan returned to class, head up, wrist healed. The fellowship continued. He didn't celebrate loudly. He didn't gloat. He just moved forward. One afternoon, he told me something that stuck. She didn't lose because of the system, he said. She lost because she thought the rules were only for other people. And that was the real karma. Not shouting, not revenge, just consequences, documented, processed, unavoidable. Karen learned what happens when entitlement collides with evidence. The neighborhood learned what silence protects. And Evan learned that standing still, telling the truth, and letting systems work can be louder than any scream. If you want more HOA karma stories like this, like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments. Do you think consequences should be harsher when authority figures cross the line?